New Gonzaga guard Teryn Gardner joins the program to discuss transferring from Boise State, returning home to Spokane, and what she brings to Coach Lisa Fortier's team.
You are Locked On Zags, your daily podcast on the Gonzaga Bulldogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, y'all? Welcome into the Locked On Zags podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host and longtime Gonzaga podcaster, Andy Patton, here to bring you news and updates on all things Zag athletics. Today's episode of Locked On Zags is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Fun show today, folks. Joined by Gonzaga guard Teryn Gardner, entering her sophomore season after starting her college career at Boise State. Teryn and I are going to talk about her decision to transfer back home to Gonzaga after she started at Meade High School. We're also going to talk about what she brings to Coach Lisa Fortier's team, this new look roster after losing so many seniors from last year's team. We'll also talk a little bit about the broad scope of women's college and professional basketball in the United States. Really fun show here. Well, folks, thrilled to be joined today by Teryn Gardner, one of the newest members of Gonzaga's women's basketball team, a Spokane native and Meade High School star who spent her freshman season at Boise State. Teryn, first of all, welcome not only to the Locked On Zags show, but also welcome back to Spokane. How's it feel to be back in town after a year away?
It feels absolutely amazing. The support I've gotten, the feeling of being home, it's just one of a kind, and I'm loving it so far.
For you, you go to Boise State, and from some of the articles I've read, it looks like Gonzaga kind of showed a late interest in you out of high school, but you'd ended up already committing to Boise State. What was the process like after your freshman season? You entered the transfer portal. First of all, what's the transfer portal process just like in general, and kind of how did you end up making the decision to come back home, to come to Spokane, to go play for this Gonzaga team for your sophomore year?
Yeah, it's hectic for sure. Very stressful, and you don't really know what to expect when you go in the portal, because for one, I've never been in it until I entered, and it was just stressful. Like, you don't know who's going to reach out, what's going to happen. But I always kind of wanted Gonzaga. I think like that's what I thought going into it, is I want Gonzaga, and then they happened to reach out, and we had a good connection and talked, and we got along and felt like it was a good fit for the both of us. And so from then on, I knew I wanted to come home, and I knew I wanted it to be Gonzaga.
Well, so when looking at kind of the things that you were looking at coming into the transfer portal and kind of looking at your new school, obviously the opportunity to come home is powerful for anybody, I imagine. And you see so many players in any sport who ultimately often enter the transfer portal and end up returning closer to their hometown. So not a shock there. But were there other things that appealed to you about Gonzaga kind of outside of the Spokane of it all, in terms of like play style or teammates or atmosphere or anything like that kind of made the decision even easier for you?
Totally. I think coming home was honestly a perk of Gonzaga basketball. I think Gonzaga basketball is what attracted me the most. Is they're competitive, they're family oriented, they're a winning program, and they really kick up the intensity and just, bring the full force, bring full heat. And I love that about them, and really excited to be working with them this year.
So now that you're here, now that you're back in town, now that you've kind of gotten to know your teammates, and some of them I'm sure you maybe interacted with in the past, but knowing the coaching staff and getting on the court and practices and stuff, obviously it's still pretty early, still a few months until the first games, but what have kind of been your first impressions of the program, of the staff, the team, kind of just the overall experience being somebody who's now at Gonzaga, not just seeing it from afar?
Yeah, I think being from within, I think everybody can kind of see it, but especially being from within, you really recognize that it's family oriented and that they care about you as basketball players, yes, but also as people, and they really want you to thrive and succeed. And so I think that's the coolest thing, is being within the program now. Like, you can see that all from outside and support them. And sometimes in other programs, you don't necessarily goes what on inside and you only see what outside, and it's all rainbows and butterflies and whatnot. But from within, it's been a great experience so far, and everyone is just amazing and hardworking and super kind and welcoming. That's the biggest thing, is everyone's so welcoming. But I've loved it.
Well, it's one of the things that's always stood out to me about this program, on both the men's and women's side, but that family atmosphere. And you see it with not having a ton of players transferring out in an era where, there are so many transfers in again, both men's and women's basketball every year. And there are programs that are losing 3, 4, 5, 6 players pretty much every offseason. And Gonzaga has not had that happen. They had a couple of transfers this year, but for, I think, fairly understandable reasons. And it's just not a thing that we've really seen all that much. But one thing that's kind of standing out to me about this team this year is it's a lot of new faces. You lose, obviously, one of the most prolific players in the program's history, and Yvonne Ejim, but also other, 4-year players like Esther Little and Maud Hybens and a few others who hit the transfer portal or graduated. And you're coming in, 3 other transfers coming in, 3 freshmen coming in, a very, very new look team. So again, knowing that it's mid-August and there's still a few months till the season, what has been kind of the process of trying to get everybody sort of on the same page and familiar with each other and with a lot of seniors out the door, kind of that leadership piece is something I'm curious about with this team kind of heading into next year as well. How has that process been going this summer so far?
Yeah, I think having a lot of new people can be difficult, and especially, all the returners. We only have returners that have 1 year, 2 max experience at Gonzaga. And so that's definitely tough. But at the same time, it's also kind of a blessing because we're all in the same boat. Like, we're all transferring in, we're all new, incoming freshmen, like all new, but we all have the same goals and have the same mindset. And so we've, I think, just clicked already right away and have all gotten along really well. And again, everyone's been so welcoming and kind. And so it's just been great getting to know everyone and building those connections, and I think it's going to be a good season.
Yeah, I think it stands out to me that so many of the transfers coming in also are from the West Coast. I know Taylor's from Idaho, and obviously you're from Spokane, played in Idaho. Sierra comes over from Cal Poly. Z comes over from St. Mary's. So kind of this group of players that are all from similar areas and have similar levels of experience, and joining a team that, like you said, doesn't have a ton of players who've been here for a very long time, but could certainly result in a lot of camaraderie early in the offseason. What have the coaching staff kind of been able to do to help kind of foster that and help make sure that, you need a combination of competition, culture of competition of, hey, we're competing for playing time and competing for the roles, but at the same time, we're also trying to get to know each other and make sure that when we're on the floor together, that we, are on the same page. We understand what's going on. Like, what has, for Coach Fortier and the staff, like, this is one of, if not the most kind of new look roster that they've had in a while. What have you kind of experienced and seen them do that have kind of helped get this team ready for this upcoming season?
Yeah, I think, again, they've been very welcoming and clear on what they want. We talk a lot about possibility versus expectations. So I know we have high expectations with, Gonzaga basketball and the record they've had in the past and all these new faces and new people and just keeping up that tradition. But there's so many possibilities that we have with this team this year and so many places we can go and things we can do. And so I think the coaches have made that really clear, and we're just all excited for it and excited to get working.
Teryn discusses her game and how it fits with Coach Lisa Fortier's style, plus the pros and cons of her freshman year at Boise State. That and more coming up in just a second. But first, folks, you ever decide at the last minute you want to head out to a ball game with your friends or your family? Maybe it's game day. You suddenly realize it's way too nice to be watching this game from home. I want to get out to the park. That's exactly where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets to any event, whether it's a sporting event, comedy, concert, theater, whatever. You can get tickets without all of the stress. And with the money that you save on those tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, even just get a bigger group of friends to come out with you. Gametime makes all of that possible. Prices on the app, they actually drop the closer that it gets to first pitch. And they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear views from your seat, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. Gametime is also the official ticketing partner of Locked On MLB, making it easy to browse the app for for an exciting upcoming MLB or minor league game. And if you are somebody who wants to get out and celebrate the final few summer weekends in Spokane, this Friday, the Spokane Indians host the Vancouver Canadians at Avista Stadium. Tickets down the first base line, just $18 a piece. And they got a few tickets right behind the plate at just $31. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets by using Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Terms apply. Download the Gametime app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. For fans of this program who maybe aren't super familiar with your game or aren't super familiar with some of the newcomers joining the team, what is this program getting in Teryn Gardner, the player? Like, what are you bringing to this team, and kind of what do you expect to be able to be your biggest kind of contributions on the floor for this team heading into your sophomore season?
Yeah, I would say a hustle factor. I like to think that I have a really good motor, and so I don't get tired super often, and that really helps me on defense and just diving on balls, whatever, getting steals, just really trying to play good defense and getting stops, because I think that helps lead to my offense. And so also shooting, I think I'm a decent shooter, so that'll come in handy this year, hopefully.
36% from three in the Mountain West. Nothing to shake your head at there. So yeah, I know Coach Fortier mentioned the outside shooting, mentioned the defense as well. We're a defensive player of the year in the state. So obviously have that impact for you coming into this program. So kind of looking at your freshman season at Boise State, the playing time that you got, the role that you had on that team. Did that season go kind of according to your expectations? And are there kind of parts of your game that maybe you felt could be expanded upon at Gonzaga, or things that maybe you personally want to work on and improve upon, or things that maybe you think this new system, new offense might be able to kind of bring out in your game that weren't present there your first year?
Yeah, last year was definitely not what I expected. It was a blessing for sure, and I had a great experience there and loved Boise, but in the end, it just didn't work out, and I'm glad to be back at Gonzaga, but there's always things to improve on, and so for me, I say my defense is good, but it can be better. Shooting's decent, it can be better. Sure. But there's also, just offensively, I'm always just trying to get better, listen to anyone who has anything to help me out with, and really just try to improve my game all around.
I think a big thing that happens so often in college athletics, and fans who are really wrapped up in this can often kind of lose sight of this is that, I mean, there's a human element to it, and everybody, so many fans of Gonzaga, were college, either went to Gonzaga or went to college somewhere, and maybe forget that first year of college is difficult. For many people, it's their first time away from home, and for basketball in particular, the season is longer, the travel is more, and so for you, were there kind of some welcome to college basketball moments that you had, and things that maybe will be a little bit easier, even though you're at a different place, you're closer to home, and also have kind of now gone through the grind of a college basketball season, that you think might help you elevate your game in your sophomore season?
Yeah, totally. I think going into my freshman year, I knew it would be tough for sure, but I think there were a lot more thinking that it was going to be all happy and, again, butterflies and rainbows and just lots of fun, and it's going to be tough, yes, but it'll be fun in the end. But I think, it was a challenge. Freshman year for a ton of people is a challenge, and that was a challenge for me for sure. But I've grown from it both mentally and physically, and it's been such a blessing. And so now going into this year, I think I know what to expect at a D1 program and what to expect going into it, and that it's not going to be all butterflies and rainbows, and that there are going to be challenges, but those are what make you stronger, and those are what is going to help you win in the end.
One of the kind of hallmarks of this program that we've seen beyond just the last 5 years, but obviously it's been really pronounced in the last couple of years thanks to the performance of Yvonne Ejim down low, is kind of this high-low offense where they want the ball down low. They want their kind of offensive hub to have the ball. But then they also have a kind of surround the post with a lot of three-point shooters. And you saw somebody like Brenda Maxwell a couple of years ago go shoot about 50% from three, and you saw your new teammate Allie Turner shoot 45% from three and reset the record for made threes in a season. And a lot of that I think has to do with the gravity of somebody like Yvonne down low, pulling a lot of defense away from the perimeter and kind of giving some space to those outside shooters. For you, joining a team that obviously Turner is going to be back and is probably going to be projected to be the WCC Player of the Year based on how she did last year, and obviously the post is going to be different with both Yvonne and Maud on the way out. But do you kind of expect a role where you're going to have the ability to maybe knock down some open shots and get some open looks, perhaps in a way different than you did at Boise State, just because of how this offense is set up and how Coach Fortier has kind of run this system for the last 10 years at this point?
Yeah, totally. I think that's a good possibility for me. They want me to be able to shoot the ball, and I know I can shoot the ball. And so with that inside post presence and how Gonzaga runs their offense, I think there's going to be lots of opportunity for that. And so now it just comes down to making the shot.
Yeah. If you got somebody who's going to get you open looks, you got to knock them down. That's a great way to stay on the floor. And especially on a team here where, guard depth was an issue for this team last year. Injuries were a big part of that with Dalton being injured and Bree Salenbien had some injuries too. But going into this year, there's a lot of depth in that backcourt. Obviously some returners, Turner being among them, Inez Betancourt and a few others, and then some new players coming in, yourself and Z coming over from St. Mary's. So just looking at this backcourt, there's a lot of players competing for, a handful of roles. How has that been in practices, in, the scrimmages that you've had so far, and kind of figuring out how to establish yourself and maybe set yourself apart so that you can get some playing time while also, trying to just adjust to being on a new team and everything? I'm sure there's a heck of a lot going on right now for you.
Yeah, it's honestly a lot of fun. I mean, getting to come in and compete every day, that's a gift that not many get to have. And some might look at it as a threat or, I don't know, downgrade, but I think it's totally awesome. And to be able to compete every day, and we have so many good players, and again, like compete against them, but also play with them. Like it's going to be a lot of fun. And I think we're all going to complement each other well and just be happy for each other's successes.
Well, this will be your first and your last year in the WCC, as of course Gonzaga is set to join the Pac-12 after this upcoming season in 2026. Of course, they will be joining the Pac-12 along with your previous school, Boise State. I'm sure that right now the focus is primarily on this upcoming season and maybe haven't given a ton of thought to that. But, the Pac-12, especially on the women's basketball side, the previous Pac-12 was an absolutely dominant conference with Stanford and Oregon at times was outstanding. And so joining that conference and getting to compete against your old school in Boise, as well as Oregon State and Washington State, who I know you'll compete against this year as well. But is there kind of some excitement about, hey, it's going to be pretty cool to be in a conference like the Pac-12 kind of going forward, and what that means for this program in general?
Yeah, 100%. I think we're definitely focused on this year right now, but looking in the future, we're all excited for it. It's going to be a new opportunity and new competition. And so I think everybody's just, really excited.
Growing up in Spokane, one thing that's always struck me specifically lately is there's just a ton of talent that has come out of not just Spokane, but like the greater Washington area. We've seen so many great players. Lexi Holmes comes out from Spokane. I know Haley Van Lith from the central part of the state, and obviously Yvonne and so many other greats from Gonzaga. Courtney Vandersloot, of course, Hall of Fame career getting wrapped up here in the WNBA. So were there players, whether Gonzaga or not, just like players that you kind of grew up rooting for that maybe are from the state of Washington, or just kind of talk a little bit about the talent level in this state and women's basketball, because I don't think it gets talked about all that much. And yet there are so many players in the WNBA right now who came out of this state, competing.
Yeah, I mean, I love it because Spokane is, Hooptown USA and big basketball center and Hoop Fest and all these fun events for basketball. And it's honestly just so cool to be a part of. And I definitely, grew up hearing about the whole Twins and all these amazing basketball players, and I wanted to be like them. Like they were always the best in Spokane, best in the GSL, best in the state, and those were my idols to look up to and grow from. And I just wanted to be like them, I guess. So
The rise of women's basketball, it's been talked about so much in the, a lot of it obviously has been attributed to Caitlin Clark, but we've seen, college basketball has been popular in the Inland Northwest, women's college basketball, I should say, for a very long time, since well before it's kind of gotten that national coverage the way that it has recently. But we've seen that with college basketball has grown, and then the WNBA has grown with more exposure and more attention on it, more eyeballs. And the WNBA has capitalized on that by expanding. They're adding a team in Portland, which I'm very happy about as somebody who grew up in Portland and remembered the Portland Fire and the brief couple of years that they were there. It feels like a really kind of an exciting time to be, in this sport on the college level and at the professional level. How exciting has it been for you to kind of see this sport grow and see the success of these players? Again, some of them that you kind of grew up rooting for, and just kind of seeing how much this sport has grown as kind of a spectator sport in the last half decade or so.
Yeah, I love to see it. I mean, the shirt that everyone wears or whatever slogan, everyone watches women's sports.
Yeah.
Like, it's just the coolest thing. And I want that to keep growing and keep happening. And so whatever part Gonzaga can play, whatever part I can play and my teammates can play, like, we want to support that and want to watch it keep going because it's so fun for us, but also so fun for the whole country. And so it's just cool to see so many role models encouraging it. And then it's also knowing that we can do our part to help encourage it too.
Last question for you, Teryn, for fans, again, who are getting ready for this upcoming season or excited to watch this team this year. What are some things that they can really be looking forward to with this group in general? Like, whether it's specific styles or specific kind of just teammates or anything like that is going to be a fun thing that people are going to want to watch about this team this upcoming season?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to be special. We're all new players, but we're all already clicking and enjoying our experience here. And so I think it's just going to be a fun group to watch and get to know. And if anyone has any questions for us to get to know us because we're all so new, then, reach out, let us know, and we'll be happy to answer them. But I think we're just excited for the season and for Gonzaga basketball and, to try to keep the legacy going.
Teryn, thank you so much for hopping on the show. Always appreciate having you on, always having players coming on as they're about to start their Gonzaga journey. So very excited about this, excited for the upcoming season. And again, thank you for hopping on.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
All right, folks, that's going to wrap it up for me today. Once again, big thank you to Teryn Gardner for jumping on the show. Always fun to have those interviews with the women's basketball players as the season gets closer and closer. That's going to wrap it up for me today. Again, we got one more show later this week. Continue to keep you up to date on Gonzaga's recruiting, any updates we get on the Pac-12 media deal, hearing that we might get some more information about that later this week. So we'll keep an eye out for that. Got some more fun stuff planned for you in the next couple of weeks as well. Thanks again, folks, for listening. Have a fantastic rest of your day. And of course, as always, go Zags.